Something significant has just occurred in the Black Sea, but it didn't come with explosions, dramatic headlines, or sensational footage. The most impactful changes in modern warfare often happen quietly and only become clear after the consequences are fully realized. While global attention remains focused on the slow-moving front lines in eastern Ukraine, the real shift is happening elsewhere around Odessa. The city remains intact, not captured, not reduced to rubble. Yet, it has been effectively neutralized, not by military forces marching through its streets, but by the control of its surrounding environment. And that subtle difference is far more important than most people realize. For nearly 2 years, the narrative has been that Russia's Navy was pushed back, that drones had revolutionized naval warfare, and that Western-backed innovation had eliminated Moscow's advantage in the Black Sea. This narrative seemed reassuring because it suggested progress without escalation. But wars aren't won by viral clips or isolated victories. They are decided by who controls the air, the sea, and most critically, the range of options available to the opposing side. Russia, without launching an amphibious assault or staging a high-profile battle, has reshaped the Black Sea so thoroughly that Odessa is now under constant surveillance and pressure. The city's functionality has been systematically squeezed, and NATO finds itself in a difficult position, unable to change the situation without risking confrontation. This is where things get uncomfortable. Odessa is not just another Ukrainian city. It represents a case study in modern power dynamics, showing how control can be achieved without occupation. A city can be neutralized without ever being seized. A region can be dominated without a flag being raised. And NATO, an alliance designed for military dominance, finds itself constrained by geography, treaties, and the risk of escalation. If this is happening in the Black Sea, just miles away from NATO's border, it raises a much larger question. What does this reveal about the limits of Western power, not just in Ukraine, but globally? What we're witnessing is not the collapse of the Western order, but something more subtle, more dangerous, a slow realization that many of the rules governing modern conflict no longer apply. Once this understanding sets in, it becomes impossible to reverse. This shift in Odessa is essential to understanding the future of the war, but this development isn't being openly discussed in much of the Western media. That silence isn't due to confusion, it's about discomfort. Acknowledging what has happened would force a reckoning with a central assumption about the war that has proven to be false. While much of the coverage continues to focus on the slow, attritional battles in eastern Ukraine, a far more significant strategic shift has taken place in the south. Odessa, long seen as Ukraine's maritime lifeline and NATO's potential gateway into the Black Sea, has quietly transformed into something else entirely. It has not been occupied, but effectively sealed off, neutralized by Russia's methodical control of the surrounding space. This shift is more consequential than the capture of any single town in the Donbass. Odessa is Ukraine's last major port, its remaining link to global trade. And it is the pivot point of the entire northern Black Sea power balance. The West reassured the public for months, claiming Russia's Black Sea fleet had been neutralized, that Ukraine was taking the initiative with drones and precision strikes, and that the rules of naval warfare were being rewritten. While these claims had some truth, they were incomplete. Naval power is not determined by isolated successes or viral moments. It is determined by sustained control over time. In this respect, the balance of power in the Black Sea has shifted decisively. Naval warfare is about control of space and time, air dominance, and the ability to deny an opponent freedom of movement. Russia didn't need to capture Odessa to achieve its objectives. It simply needed to make the city unusable as a strategic asset. By saturating the region with missile coverage, persistent surveillance, and air dominance, Russia has rendered Odessa politically Ukrainian, but strategically neutralized. NATO, bound by geography and treaty, has no way to reverse this without risking a direct confrontation with Russia, and the alliance is not prepared to take that risk. The story of Odessa is not just about a single city. It's a demonstration of how modern warfare works. In today's conflicts, control is often achieved not by occupation, but through denial. Russia's strategy around Odessa exemplifies this. The city remains physically intact, its flag still flying, but its strategic role has been systematically removed. This is not just a military maneuver, but a clear message that Russia has shaped the environment in such a way that the city is no longer a useful asset to NATO or Ukraine. It's a vital lesson in how power is exerted today, control through constraints, not conquest. NATO, for all its military might, finds itself in an uncomfortable position. While the alliance can issue strong statements, it is unable to take meaningful action. Any attempt to intervene would risk escalating into a full-scale confrontation with Russia, and NATO is not prepared to take that chance. This represents a significant shift from the West's usual approach to conflict. In the past, military engagement was often viewed as a way to demonstrate power and assert dominance. But in Odessa, Russia has shown that the true measure of control is not about occupying land, but about denying an opponent's ability to operate freely. The implications of this strategy extend far beyond the Black Sea. The situation in Odessa is a preview of how future conflicts may unfold. Control over a region does not always require boots on the ground or a flag in the soil. In fact, modern warfare is increasingly about shaping the environment so that the opponent has no room to maneuver, no way to operate without constant pressure. This kind of control is far more effective than occupying a city or region outright, because it can be achieved without triggering immediate military retaliation. This is where Odessa's fate becomes a broader lesson for the West. The city's transformation from a strategic asset to a politically neutralized zone reveals the limits of Western power projection. NATO's ability to influence outcomes in confined theaters is constrained by geography, legal limitations, and escalation risks. While the alliance is effective in signaling and coalition building, it struggles when confronted with the hard realities of geography and military dominance in regions like the Black Sea. Russia's approach to Odessa is a stark reminder that military power is not absolute, and that the ability to shape environments quietly and over time can be more decisive than overt confrontation. For Russia, Odessa represents more than just a strategic port. It's a symbol of the broader shift in warfare. Throughout history, Russian planners have always viewed geography as an essential factor in their military strategy. The Black Sea has never been just another body of water. It's a crucial part of Russia's defense infrastructure, a warm water outlet that the country has relied on for centuries. The collapse of the Soviet Union did not change the strategic importance of the Black Sea. It simply changed the political landscape. Russia has always known that its access to the Black Sea could never be compromised, and this has shaped its approach to military power in the region. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Russia built a system of ports, airfields, and coastal defenses designed to deny any adversary access to the Black Sea. Even after the fall of the Soviet Union, Russian planners never accepted the idea that the Black Sea would become a Western-dominated space. NATO's expansion into Eastern Europe was tolerated, but when the alliance approached Russia's maritime borders, it crossed a line. This is where Western analysis often missed the mark. The Black Sea is not like the Atlantic or Mediterranean. It is a confined space with strict geographic and legal constraints. NATO's military operations in the region are limited by these realities. Russia, on the other hand, operates from its own backyard with direct access to air power, missile systems, and a network of defenses that can project power across most of the Black Sea. The West has long believed that Ukraine could offset Russia's geographical advantages through asymmetrical warfare drones, anti-ship missiles, and other technological innovations. Tactically, this approach worked, but strategically, it only bought time. Time, however, favors the actor with the deeper industrial capacity, the stronger escalation control, and the geographic advantage. Russia adapted to the situation, hardened its defenses, and integrated its systems. As it did so, the window for meaningful NATO intervention continued to shrink. The situation around Odessa didn't happen overnight. It was the result of sustained pressure applied across multiple domains. As the situation around Odessa evolved, Russia steadily tightened its grip on the Black Sea region. The first step was to gradually limit maritime access, with exclusion zones expanding and commercial shipping becoming increasingly risky. The once vital grain corridors, which had been touted as symbols of Ukrainian resilience, became fragile lifelines dependent on restraint rather than control. At the same time, Russia focused on degrading the infrastructure around Odessa. Strikes targeting power grids, logistics hubs, rail connections, and air defense systems weren't random. They were calculated moves designed to weaken the city's ability to function as both a military and logistical center. Russia's approach to Odessa was not about dramatic displays of force, but about creating a situation where the city's strategic value was undermined without triggering a large-scale military confrontation. Surveillance increased dramatically, reconnaissance flights became routine, and submarines patrolled the waters. Every move was designed to shape the battlefield, not to engage in direct combat. This was not an isolated tactic, but a systematic effort to deny NATO and Ukraine the ability to use Odessa as a base for operations. The Western response to these developments, by contrast, was largely rhetorical. There were no NATO convoys escorting shipping through the Black Sea, no freedom of navigation operations backed by overwhelming force. Any such action would risk triggering an immediate escalation with a nuclear-armed state in a confined theater. Russia had the upper hand when it came to geography, and NATO was reluctant to challenge that. Instead, the alliance quietly adjusted its stance. Odessa shifted from being seen as a strategic military asset to a political symbol, something to be defended through speeches and declarations rather than actual military action. Russia's strategy around Odessa was a lesson in restraint. By saturating the region with air and missile defenses, it rendered the port effectively unusable as a military hub without crossing the threshold of occupation. NATO, caught between its legal and treaty obligations and the escalating risk of confrontation, had no credible way to challenge Russia's control. This represents a profound shift in how military power is understood today. In the past, victory was often seen in terms of physical occupation, who held the most ground, who planted their flag in the most places. But in Odessa, Russia showed that control doesn't always require occupation. It requires denial. This strategy has broader implications for how control is exercised in modern warfare. The idea that a city or region must be captured in order to be controlled is increasingly outdated. As Odessa demonstrates, influence can be exerted without ever raising a flag. What matters is the ability to prevent an opponent from using a region to their advantage. This is particularly true in regions with strategic significance, like the Black Sea, where geography plays a central role in shaping military capabilities. By denying access to key areas, Russia has achieved its objectives without needing to engage in direct confrontation. For NATO, this presents a troubling reality. The alliance has been built around the idea that military dominance can be asserted through conventional means, through the occupation of territory, the destruction of enemy forces, and the ability to project power across the globe. But in confined theaters like the Black Sea, those assumptions are being challenged. Russia's success in neutralizing Odessa without resorting to occupation exposes the limitations of NATO's traditional approach. It highlights the fact that Western military power, while still formidable, is not always sufficient to overcome the realities of geography and escalation. This realization is not just important for understanding the situation in Ukraine, but for broader global security concerns. If NATO cannot meaningfully contest Russia's control of the Black Sea, what does that say about the alliance's ability to project power in other contested regions around the world? The shift in Odessa is a stark reminder that geography, law, and escalation risks are factors that cannot be ignored. And as this understanding spreads, it will influence military strategies and alliances far beyond the Black Sea. The strategic environment around Odessa did not change overnight. It has been a slow, methodical process, one that many observers failed to notice until it was too late. The transformation of Odessa from a vital military asset to a neutralized, politically symbolic city reveals much about the nature of modern conflict. For one, it shows that control can be achieved through a steady accumulation of small controlled actions rather than through large-scale military operations. Each individual step may seem insignificant, but taken together, they can create a strategic environment where the opponent's options are severely limited. This realization has major implications for how conflicts are fought and won in the modern era. For NATO, it's a harsh reminder that victory is not always about direct military confrontation. Sometimes it's about shaping the environment in such a way that the enemy has no room to maneuver, no way to use key resources or regions to their advantage. The loss of Odessa's strategic value does not mean it has been captured. It means it has been rendered irrelevant. And that is a form of victory in itself. For Russia, this approach is the culmination of decades of military thinking. Russian planners have long understood that the Black Sea is a vital strategic asset. They have always viewed access to this region as an existential necessity, not just a political one. In the 19th century, Russia built a system of naval defenses designed to prevent any foreign power from gaining control of the Black Sea. Even after the Soviet Union collapsed, this strategic logic remained intact. The region was never seen as an area that could be ceded to Western influence. NATO's expansion into Eastern Europe was tolerated, but when it came to the Black Sea, Russia's stance was firm. This context is crucial for understanding Russia's actions around Odessa. The Black Sea is not just a body of water, it's a vital part of Russia's defense infrastructure. Control of the Black Sea ensures that Russia has access to warm water ports, critical for both military and economic reasons. In this light, Odessa's neutralization is not just a tactical victory, it's a strategic one that denies NATO and Ukraine access to this critical maritime gateway. By forcing Ukraine to operate in a constrained environment, Russia has shifted the balance of power in the region without needing to occupy Odessa or engage in direct military confrontation. What makes this development particularly significant is that it reflects a broader shift in how modern power is exerted. In the past, military dominance was often seen in terms of territorial conquest, who held the most land, who controlled the most cities, and who could project the most power across the globe. But in Odessa, we see a new form of warfare, one that focuses on control rather than conquest. Russia's strategy of denial is a powerful reminder that influence can be exerted without the need for physical occupation or dramatic military victories. This shift has serious consequences, not just for Ukraine, but for the West as a whole. NATO's ability to influence events in confined theaters is increasingly limited by geography, legal restrictions, and the risk of escalation. Russia's control of the Black Sea, particularly its ability to neutralize Odessa without triggering a broader confrontation, highlights the limitations of NATO's power in the region. The alliance can issue statements, it can offer support, but it cannot meaningfully contest Russia's dominance without risking direct military engagement. And as the situation around Odessa has shown, NATO is not prepared to take that risk. For the broader global system, the implications are even more far-reaching. The shift in the Black Sea is not an isolated event. It is part of a larger trend in which traditional models of military power and conflict are being upended. The future of warfare is likely to involve more denial strategies, shaping environments in ways that limit the opponent's options without resorting to full-scale military confrontation. This is a form of conflict that is less visible, less dramatic, but often more effective. As the implications of the Odessa situation settle in, it becomes clear that this is not just about one city, but about the larger dynamics of global power. Odessa's fate, its transformation from a crucial strategic asset to a politically neutralized entity, signals a profound shift in the way modern conflicts are understood and fought. It's not a collapse or a sudden defeat, but a quiet and steady rebalancing of power. This change may not be immediately obvious, but its long-term effects will reverberate far beyond the Black Sea. The lessons learned from Odessa are not confined to Ukraine or the Black Sea region. They serve as a warning to policymakers, military strategists, and analysts around the world. The modern world is increasingly one where control is achieved not through visible occupation, but through quiet and persistent pressure. The power to shape an environment, to limit an opponent's options, can be just as decisive as outright military victory. This realization forces a rethinking of how conflicts are approached. If control can be exerted without occupation, what does this mean for future conflicts? How will this change the way the world views power and influence? For NATO, the shift in Odessa underscores the limitations of its strategy. The alliance has long relied on its ability to project power across the globe, to intervene in conflicts and exert influence through military might. But in regions like the Black Sea, where geography and legal constraints play such a significant role, that power is not absolute. The Black Sea is Russia's home turf, and NATO's ability to contest that dominance is severely limited by geography, treaties, and the risk of escalation. This shift is uncomfortable for NATO as it challenges the assumptions that have underpinned its strategy for decades. For Russia, the situation around Odessa is a demonstration of the effectiveness of long-term strategic thinking. Russia's approach to the Black Sea is not based on short-term victories or dramatic gestures, but on patient, methodical control. It understands the importance of the region, and it has built its strategy around denying access to any outside power that might threaten its control. This is a strategy that has been shaped by geography and history, and it is one that has proven to be highly effective. By neutralizing Odessa without the need for direct occupation, Russia has achieved a significant strategic victory. But the broader lesson here is about the changing nature of power itself. In the past, military dominance was often about who could take the most land or destroy the most enemy forces. Today, it's about who can control the most critical spaces, who can limit the opponent's options and deny them the ability to operate effectively. This form of control is less visible, less dramatic, but often more effective. The situation in Odessa is a clear example of this shift. It's a reminder that in modern warfare, control is not always about what is taken, but about what is made unavailable to the enemy. For the global system, the implications are profound. The shift in the Black Sea demonstrates that power is not just about military might, but about the ability to manage risks, control access, and shape environments. This realization will influence how conflicts are fought in the future, how alliances are formed, and how nations approach their military strategies. The lesson from Odessa is clear. Success in modern warfare will increasingly be measured not by what is visibly achieved, but by what is strategically denied. As the world grapples with these realities, it will be forced to confront uncomfortable truths about the limitations of power. NATO, Russia, and the broader international community will need to adjust their strategies and reassess their assumptions. The era of uncontested dominance is coming to an end, and the era of managed denial is taking its place. Odessa is one of the clearest examples of this transition, and its story is a signal, a warning, and a guide for understanding how modern conflict will unfold. The Black Sea has been reshaped, the balance of power has shifted, and the consequences of this shift will extend far beyond Ukraine. As the world comes to terms with this new reality, the question remains, how will power be understood and wielded in a world where denial, not conquest, becomes the dominant strategy?